Good morning. I'd like to open the meeting. I just want to say a few words before I do. I would like to welcome everyone back to the CAPS meeting. Our last meeting was held on February 21st when officers' elections took place. And I would like to reintroduce the officers. I'm Elaine Schneiderman. Jack Goldman, would you raise your hand and wave? And Marilyn Stoloff he's our vice president, and Marilyn Stoloff is our secretary. At this time, I want to thank Jackie Raley for her 2 years of service as vice president. I appreciated all the work you've done for me. And now I would like to introduce Bruce Bandler, who will be discussing our maintenance contract, followed by a question and answer period. Take it away, Bruce.
Thank you, Elaine, and congratulations on being president again of CAPS.
Thank you.
And I'd like to congratulate Jack Goldman. Jack, as vice president now, you may be receiving more questions than you actually ask. So your role is going to be reversed a little.
A little, but it's a good part of being alive.
Right. I know that you have the interest of the community, and we're lucky to have you. And
Thank
Marilyn, your minutes are the best. I can't wait to see what they look like after this meeting. Thank you. Okay, first of all, I wish there were more people on because this is pretty important. You guys, the directors of your associations, you are the Wynmoor warriors. On a daily basis, it's up to you to take care of your property. And through our development between the council and the associations, we tried to develop the best tools to make your life as easy as possible and that you're in compliance with the law and that you're keeping your buildings up. My relationship with you as a council employee is that I am responsible through this contract to provide these services that are outlined in this agreement and that the obligations are fulfilled to your satisfaction. I do this, each of my departments is staffed with supervisor personnel as well as department directors. However, it is my responsibility to oversee the performance of all the Wynmoor employees. I, in turn, report to the council board of directors through the council president. Next month, I'll be celebrating, it's been an honor, my 30th year here at Wynmoor. And as I look back, I see the big difference from when I first got here. When I first got here, I was the chief financial officer. And in the first month, I went around to introduce myself to the department heads. And I was really shocked when working with them, I said, we were talking about numbers and surplus and deficits. And their response was, we're not here to make a surplus. We're just like civil servants, and there was no motivation to do better. And it's always been mine to get my employees to have accountability, creativity, and move forward. And I think that's what makes this community it is. I try to make it look easy. For those of you that are in the inner circle, you know it's not easy. It's a daily grind. But if you don't make it look easy, then we're out of control. And financially, we're in great shape compared to we were 16 years ago. And that's where we stand right now. There's a change in the culture, and I try to groom my employees to have accountability and report to you guys. I want to, instead of reading the management contract and going over it, it's 28 pages, I want to break it down into different areas. The first is financial services. So let's talk money. What do we ensure happens so that you can run your association? And it's the budget process. You know that the budget is the roadmap to securing your funding success for your community. So we ensure by law that we break the budget down into two separate sections. This is by Florida statute: operating expenses and reserve expenses. Your operating budget components are compliance, maintenance, and unit owner expectations. It is by law, and we have to ensure that you are in compliance with the law and that you maintain your buildings as best as possible. I was looking at one of your budgets here, and I noticed that most of the areas are maintenance areas, but we do have compliance areas such as you must have insurance, sanitation is a compliance, of course, and everything else is basically maintenance. You have a few expectations like grounds maintenance improvements and building maintenance improvements if you want to better your asset that way. So these are things that we review with you. Then we have the reserve budget, which is also referred to as replacement funds. That's more of a correct term. And by law, we have to have a reserve for roof, painting and paving, and any deferred expense greater than $10,000. So many of you have 5 or 6 different reserves. You have elevator reserves, you have different reserves for laundry machines, some of you, so that when you need to get those done, you have the money available. Now, when we do the reserve, it is our responsibility, again, by law, and this is all law, and that's why we provide these services, that your annual reserve calculation is prepared by taking the estimated value of that asset and dividing it by the remaining life so that we get a correct contribution. And we do that for all of them, and that is a changing number all the time. Many times, you have the option, if you want to waive or reserve that item. It's not recommended. Obviously, by law, they want you to do this. And in my opinion, I wish they didn't give you the option to waive or reduce. It should be, if this is what the state says, it should be that way. But there's a lot of politics to it, and they said we can't force people to contribute to something like that. And this goes back to the climate even 30 years ago. We ensure and we help review all your proposed and pending association assessments, contracts, and disbursements. And this is interaction with all of our staff, not just the financial staff, and we're all there for you. Then what is the process? Then we have a budget meeting, which we schedule, and the proposed budget must go out to all unit owners 14 days prior to the meeting. Our policy in Wynmoor is 21 days because of our seasonal people, and we need to get it out to people across in foreign lands. We attend your meetings and we make sure all the requirements are met. The creation of the assessment coupon, many of you refer to as the maintenance coupon. The correct term is assessment. We have 2 types of assessment, the regular assessment and special assessments. We don't want to talk about special assessments. We'll talk about the regular assessments. Everything is in compliance with Florida Statute 718. So we send out the coupon book. What is next? Well, we have to process it. And we process it by mailing or dropping off the coupons, and we manually post it to the accounts receivable ledger. In the last few years, through technology and just through being more modern, we've been collecting ACH transactions. So you could pay us through your bank. And this has been very successful for us. We have about 61% of our people paying this now, which has actually reduced our receivable staff, and they've been doing functions other places. If it was up to me, I would have everybody 100% ACH. And that would eliminate a lot of this collection problem, waiting for checks and this and that. But in a community established as this, it would be very difficult to implement. If we were just brand new, spanking clean, maybe we could propose that and maybe that would happen. Most people look at that as a positive. I don't have to worry about making the maintenance payment. Many of their children pay the maintenance, or other people, or trusts, so they don't have to worry about taking their coupon book, putting it in the drawer, and pulling it out once a month and remembering. So then we have the money, and what do we do with the money? Well, that's called cash investing. There are 3 major rules that we have to abide by in investing cash. And I know many of you don't like this because you want to go with just rate of return and go to some bank somewhere in Wisconsin, in Walla Walla, that's giving a 0.1% greater than what they're servicing down here in Florida. But the 3 components, number 1 is security. It is our responsibility, us and you, that your funds are secure. And all of our funds do not ever exceed the FDI 250,000 insured limit. So many of you have a lot of money, and many of you have a lot of bank accounts because we have to set up these separate accounts to secure your money. And it's very hard. We're running out of banks. So we are expanding it. We're going into more funding. We use these different companies. And you could be sure that your money is secure. The second item that you really don't think about often is liquidity. When the funds are in the bank and you have projects coming up, you got to make sure the money's there when you need it. You don't want to buy a 20-year instrument or CD if you have a project in 10 years. We also use the process of laddering, where you have funds And they're not in one instrument, they're in different instruments so that you have more liquidity and availability to your funds. And the last but least is rate of return. And I can't believe in my lifetime that the rate of return could be like 0.1% on a bank account. If you remember back in the 80s, you were getting 16.5% on your CDs, and 6% was always like the regular number that you always based your budget on as far as receiving. And a lot of people, when they retired back then, they thought that this was going to be a trend forever and that they were just going to sell their house up north, come down here, and live on the interest from that money. Well, a lot of them had a rude awakening when the interest dropped, so that was harmful. And that was even before the 2008 crash. One term, which is a dirty word, we don't use much, so I'll say it and move on. It's commingling. The state is very concerned about commingling. Now, with 44 associations, you can see that for investment, that would be a very bad thing to put funds of one association with the other. Within your association, you're allowed to commingle your funds for investment purposes as long as we keep the proper bookkeeping. So if you have money in your roof reserve and your paving reserve, we can put them in the same fund. However, we got to make sure that we have the proper bookkeeping so that the government can come in and look and say, okay, you're not really commingling, you're not using roof reserves for painting reserves, etc. Just to let you know that all of our employees that control, handle, or disperse funds, they're under a fidelity bond, at the limits required by the Florida law. And they do come in here and they do check our balances and they say, you are properly insured or we have to make the adjustment at that time. Okay, so now we've collected the funds, and then there are some people that either forgot, of course they just forgot, to pay their funds, and time is moving on. So there is a procedure for this too. And again, you could see if you were the director and you didn't have these tools to you, you'd have to go out to other places to get them. We start off with a complimentary late letter. Oh, you must have missed your payment, please pay. Then after that, we have retained an attorney, and the lien process starts. And then after the lien process, it's a foreclosure. It's a long, extended process. It could take 18 months. Sometimes it takes longer. Banks are involved. There's foreclosures. The lobbyists protect the banks, trust me. And even though we have over 1 million condominium units in the state, we should have a larger lobby than we have. But you can understand that banks and different businesses, they have large lobbies. And this is one thing that we've been trying to work within CAI to get more of a voice on this. So now, that's the receivable part. Now we get into what you get as financial statements as a director so that you understand what actions you have to take. You have a report, you refer to it as the profit and loss report. It's technically called the monthly surplus over deficit report. Again, we are not for profit. We're a zero-based budget. Everything goes back to the unit owner. Any surplus, and it is used in future years to offset future maintenances. The first report is the balance sheet. The balance sheet is your assets, liabilities, and capital. And your assets always need to balance to your liability and capital. And you really refer to that to see what your cash balances are. That's where you'll find that, and what your accounts payables are. Then we have probably the most important report as a director. That's your accounts receivable aging report. So you know in your building who is behind and who's not. We're trying to keep this discipline that if somebody is 60 days over, it automatically goes into a lien position. It's getting better now, but in the past it would be like, well, that resident's in the hospital, or they're having a problem, or they're having this, and we're going to give them a little bit of break and give them some time. Well, you think you're doing them a favor, but you're not, because as time goes on, the hole gets bigger and they can't get out of it. And you have a duty to the other 57 units in your building. So the best thing to do is take the emotion out of it and file the lien. The reserve report, you get that on a regular basis. You see your contributions and you know when you have projects done, and the best thing to do is to make sure you have the funds available when you need them. It's a very straightforward report. Your accounts payable report. Wynmoor has a fantastic reputation for paying our bills. We never get any type of delinquency fines. The only time a bill is held up is you as a director are not satisfied with the work. We will not pay them until that is done. And that is reflected on your report. Work orders. At the end of the month, you get a compilation of all your work orders. I met with Heather the other day, and I found out a little tweak in our system here. It seems that building maintenance takes your work order reports on a regular basis, and they stick them in your box. And then Heather, at the end of the month, has a compilation of all these reports, and she gives them to you. So that's almost like a double dip there. So Heather had a good idea after our discussion that you'll get your reports on a regular basis, on a daily basis, and then if we could devise a report, Henry, which I think we have already, a work order detail report, which is just a summary. So you get this summary, and if you're missing any of the work orders or you have a question, instead of coming out with all these papers that I know you all put in the bottom drawer at home, you would just have this one report, and you could highlight to us which ones that you would like to see. And that would cut down on a lot of this paperwork and double work. And then finally, in the finance world, it's your annual reports, which is usually an audit or whatever report is required by law. Some of you only need a compilation, and but that is determined based on the amount of money and the number of units you have. And we take care of that, and we're always ensure that we use general accepted accounting principles. That is a term that is very important. And we've always had a history of being in accordance with the law. One side note is technology. We establish and install and maintain functioning accounting systems. You know, we have Henry San Juan, you see him on the screen here. He's been right now working and developing the work order system, which will strengthen our financial systems. It will also tie into the accounts receivable system, to Fred's system, to Jakia's system in the theater and recreation. For many years, even currently, we have different divisions of our business that have their own databases. Right now, Fred and Leasan and finance share a database, which is very helpful. But in one day that with security permission, many of our people will be able to go cross-reference and be able to see if I'm in the finance department and I want to know if somebody has a deposit because they're going on a trip to Sawgrass Mills, they would have the ability to do that instead of saying, hold on, I'll transfer your call. And then you get frustrated because you have to wait a little period of time. So, Henry, we're very excited, aren't we?
Yeah, very much.
I can tell. Thank you. Association Affairs Office. They assist you in your policy development. We have a lot of bylaws and rules and regulation changes. Many years ago, for those of you that remember Jack Deachman and Jay Mizell, and Jack Mendelson remembers because I believe he was on the committee, there was a unified bylaws committee for the association so that if you have a good rule in your association, it could be a good rule for somebody else. Instead of you working as separate associations, let's take all the good, make it one bylaw policy and get rid of all the obsolete. And that worked very well. Most of our associations took them, I think 40 out of 44. There's always some that will have to, not take them for whatever reasons. But as time has gone on, we've got away from that, and many associations have added or deleted from those policies. So I hope that maybe we can reform something where people look at that and say, you know what, if they're doing it and it's working in their association, we could use it in ours. And that committee was made up of all residents, just like what just happened with the bylaws committee and the great success we had there, where they took this document, and when you create your bylaws, there should be very few changes in it. But there were just some things in there that needed to be adjusted at this time, and I'm very pleased the way it went. It was not an easy task. So we assist you in your policy developing. So you have your policies, and what happens if someone doesn't follow the policy? We got to fine them for the infractions of the bylaws and the rules and regulations. Now, this is a pet peeve we have with the state, and I think you'll appreciate this, and maybe we can get some support. And we have a new person in the state legislature who was just elected, friend of ours, right, Jackie from Parkland? What's her name?
Christine Hunchowski.
Right. That's it. Right. So when we get together with her, we're going to say, and imagine this, you're a director. Somebody's doing something wrong. They have a sign in their window. They have something on the catwalk. So you got to send them a letter. Okay? A letter. Nothing gets done right away. You got to send a letter, and they got 7 days to reply. Then the board, after that, has to set up a meeting to fine them. And then 14 days pass where they have a chance to either remedy it or pay the fine. So really, they have 21 days to pick up the dog ball in the front of their door before they even see a fine or it's taken care of. I believe that any infraction should be taken care of immediately, and if they want to have a hearing or whatever, that should be retroactive. And but the clock should not start 7 to 21 days later. I just think that's so bizarre. It's like saying to people, it's okay to do something bad, and then after 21 days, then you have to remedy it. It should be remedied right away. So we have a lot of things going on that I also, with rentals, you've made changes in your bylaws, you made changes to smoking. The pets have been a situation which, again, is more of a federal government thing, but the states have made pet rules. And parking is becoming crazy. And poor Fred, I love Fred. And everyone says, Fred's not doing his job because Mrs. McGillicuddy has 3 cars in our parking lot, and what is Fred doing about it? Well, this is a very difficult thing. We could tow the cars if there's a rule that each resident has them, but how do you operate this and make sure that this is happening? Then they say, well, I was a guest. And then I'm not a guest. Or they get an occupant. It's very difficult. And it's something we need to work on as a community. Maybe we have a different type of signature on the car that says all these cars are okay and these cars aren't. But how do you know if someone's a guest or somebody's really staying over? A lot of game playing. And this thing with occupants, right now what's going on. People can't afford their own place, so they moved in with mom and dad. And we got families, 3 generations in one unit. It's not getting better. We have no teeth into that. And I think the legislature needs to help us. All the protection we had under the 55 and over rule, somebody wrote me an email that day that's going to go away soon. 55 and over communities, they don't protect us anymore. You move into a community. It's a pet-free community. Then they create a law. We understand the law, but there's places to live, and there should be compromises. But right now, you can have a camel as an emotional pet. And when we were created 40 years ago, we didn't have these areas to walk things. And unfortunately, I have a really sad story that just had an employee in a golf cart, one of our employees, a dog leashed out in front of the cart, and he ran the dog over. And the dog is going to have like $30,000 worth of health bills, of doctor bills, okay? And it's not, and it goes under, we are covered under property damage because the dog is not considered, of course, a human being, so it's not a personal liability. But we do have coverage on that, but it was really sad, and this employee has not got over it yet. He was in a golf cart, he couldn't be going that fast. The dog launches in front of him. It's just like if it was a child or a person. As a driver, you're always responsible. But this was an unforeseen, unfortunate circumstance.
Bruce, excuse me, Bruce, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important that you tell everyone that the dog was on an extended leash that I'm sorry, one of those extension leashes that can go out to 25 feet. So it's almost like the dog isn't on a leash. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And to follow up what you're saying is, I worked with this on Fred, and there's really no rules or laws making that illegal to have an extended leash. But maybe we could talk to our attorney and make it that you can have no leash. Jackie talked about this once in a manager committee meeting, and maybe we can make a rule about the leashes here and running up the flagpole and see if it works. ironically, we had this chat and we said, well, we can make the rule for the council. We can't do it for the associations. They have to make it themselves. And then we realized animals are not allowed on council property, period. So that like, except of course, if they're a service animal. Okay, so also that the job that we have to ensure gets done through that office, which alleviates from you, is to receive and investigate resident complaints. Fred came in my office yesterday, and in a 2-month period, he showed me this much of letters that he has written, from everything from animals to signs in the window to parking. And I asked him if he could break it down into percentages of what they are. But we have become disciplinarians. And, it's supposed to be an adult community. That's just the name of it. So we receive and investigate all and on the other side, we have residents that complain about the boards or other residents, and we need to investigate that to help you out, to mediate that as best as possible so that it doesn't get to any other higher level. Okay. Association affairs also ensures that your meetings are prepared properly. We prepare your agenda. It's out on the proper time. After the meeting is over, minutes are provided, whether they're made by somebody from your board or a property manager that was assigned by us. And this is important stuff. When a lawyer comes in here, that's what they want to see. That motion, was it on the agenda? The thing you discussed, was it on the agenda? The minutes. Or this conversation in the minutes that you knew that that you had a problem with puddling in that area? Bingo. So we try to make sure that your minutes are as clean as possible, that you only do business, you only show your business who was at the meeting, and so that we don't get in trouble. I know many of us like to throw everything in there and show how wonderful this meeting was and all the things we talked about, but we got to protect ourselves here. And we've had that when we had the QBE lawsuit. We lost a lot of it because there was that type of talk in there that willingly and knowingly directors did or did not do things. Okay, so now you have your meeting and you have elections, and we have to monitor the vote there. We have the 2-envelope system. We have somebody in the room to make sure that the vote is correct. In larger meetings, or if the association wants it, we'll get a third party from an outside source that knows nobody so that it's independent. That's something we do at the council meetings. We bring somebody in from a temporary agency. They sign a form that they know nobody in Wynmoor or any of the participants. They sit back there with the boxes and they just make sure that the election goes smoothly. Same thing when it comes to membership issues and the membership needs to vote. Issues like changes in the bylaw, material changes. You change the color of your building to stand over a particular deviation. We got to have a unit on a vote on that. That is something new to us. It used to be the board made that decision, but somebody brought that to our attention that is actually a material change, and we had to start doing that. And our favorite, of course, reducing or waiving the reserves okay. Oh, maintenance is going up $25. How do we get it down? Well, take out the $15 contribution from roofs. We just did it this year, and we'll worry about it in 3 or 4 or 5 years to start making the contributions, because that's a project that's off 15 years. It's flexible. I know as a director, you got to make these decisions. You don't want to choke your residents, and the state allows you to do it. But it's ironic that they make it that you have to show your reserves fully funded to the people, and then they have the right to vote it. And if you put it in front of them, what are they going to do? They're going to vote for it. We don't buy green bananas, do we? So then some of the people are not looking long term. Many of our new residents, they're younger and they understand not only do you have a fiduciary responsibility, but the time will come and you need to take care of those situations. Another fun one is transferring reserve funds. Okay, we have plenty of money in this reserve, like let's call it the roofing reserve. We just had our roof done 3 or 4 years ago, but we have no money in the painting reserve. So let's take some of that money, we'll put it there, and then we'll do that. That's a unit on a vote. That's not a board of directors vote. The board of directors they're responsible for passing the operational budget and the reserve budget if there are no changes to it. Now, that's by bylaw. It could be changed, but our bylaws say that the board of directors passes the budget, and primarily most associations do that. Now, what are some of the other association duties they do that are in this contract that take the burden off you? Well, this is Wynmoor wide now. We have over 500 sales contracts a year. That's 10% of Wynmoor is changing every year. So those of you that are in demographics too, you can see if the math is right that over 10 years, we are fully changed over, okay? That's not 100% true, but you see where that's going. Leases, we have 1,000 leases. That's 20% of our population is leasing in here. How did that occur? Wynmoor is a good investment. People buy the units at a good price. They fix them up. They rent them out. People move on and their children take over the units and they say, you know what, I'm not ready to live here yet, and I'll lease the unit out and I'll make some income on it. But we have a lot of people here, and we tried to control this. We said, well, you can't have more than 2 units in an association. Well, unfortunately, how many associations do we have? 44. So you can theoretically own 88 units in Wynmoor. And we have people that own double digits in here. Luckily, those people we deal with, they're good people. They keep the units up. They have really used them to move them on later on. So they've taken a unit that was maybe 40 years old that needed new furnishings and whatever, and they made it work out. Architectural modification requests and authorizations. This is another wonderful committee, and I thank Jackie for helping us with this. That committee, and this is on a unit owner level, if you keep your units up and the values of your unit, it affects everybody else. We may want to extend this to help you as associations. And I know that you may say, well, I don't want anyone telling us what we should do architecturally. But if I'm your neighbor and I'm a different association and you decide to do something that is irregular with the rest of the community, it should be addressed. So Jackie, maybe through CAPS or through council, you may want to talk to some of these associations and see if they're willing to unify and say we can put some limitations on and restrictions on what associations could do as far as the look of the association. I'm talking primarily painting, you know, because that's the one that stands out the most. And that's the one we get the most complaints about. You live in a village, 5 different associations. One building paints a different color than the other 4. Okay? I think you understand. Voter designation certificates, document duplication, mailing, email correspondence with unit owners. We've been email crazy now. And I know when people get emails, they want a quick answer to a question that's not that easy. They'll say, why is the sky blue? And they expect you to answer quick. I'm trying to get my people, if it's one of those why is the sky blue questions, get it back with a phone call, because a phone call could take much shorter than writing out this long, extensive email that could be done by phone. So when you write emails to us, just remember, you're not the only ones writing to them. We get hundreds of emails a day. So if it's something that could just, you know, can you just answer a quick question? It's a hybrid. So let's try to do it, try to help us out here a little bit. But the email thing has been working out, particularly with building maintenance, because it is a documentation. And I've really got few complaints saying, well, I have an email here from 3 months ago, which hasn't been fulfilled. I'm not getting that kind of talk anymore. I was worried about that when we first got into the emails. But it seems like, I may be opening a can of worms here, that many of you as directors have seen that there's been a change of things getting done more promptly, and communication has been better, and the process is working. Emotional pet requests. I don't know the count of how many pets we have in here now, but it's staggering. Along with registration IDs, gate passes, visitor passes, parking golf carts. Your association designates people to have golf carts in these spots. We register them. We collect the fees for you. You charge a small fee. Also, automobile registration and parking spot designation. Again, parking has been the big thing. When Wynmoor was created 40 years ago, people retired. There were 2 people. They moved in here. It was a quieter life. Now, more than 1 person in a apartment drives, sometimes 3 or 4. As I come into work now at 7 o'clock, I see more people coming out than people coming in. So it's a different demographic than this place was built for. And that's a lot of our problems. We're trying to make rules and regulations for a 12-ounce can where we're trying to get 16 ounces in a 12-ounce can. If this place was brand new, we would have all these animal areas that we could walk the emotional pets and the service animals. We don't have that. We don't have the proper parking. It was never thought to be an average of 1.5 or 2 cars per unit. And because the different associations have different rules as far as number of cars and stickers, it puts a lot of pressure on us. We talked about maybe parking and decals should not be an association authority. Maybe it should be council, because that really falls under security. So maybe at another CAPS meeting, you could talk about this in good and welfare, if you'd want to give that responsibility to us, and we could have one general rule when it comes to parking designations and stickers and this and that. This is another problem. It comes with other things. I'm a director. I like you. I'm going to give you that. I understand you have a special need or whatever. And it becomes selective enforcement. And then because you gave it to that one, we hear from our attorney that you have to give it to the next one. And we just get a little bit out of control. Violation letters, as I said before, we send about 200 a month. And it's a lot of time. A lot of them are standard letters, but a lot of them are very unusual stuff. You hear me a lot of times saying, I wish we started a book a few years ago. People would not believe some of the stuff that we get here as far as these situations. Building maintenance. There's a 7-year rule in property management. If you're a property manager and you have a property that's less than 7 years old, you're in, because things are not breaking down yet or need to be replaced. After 7 years, the reserves start kicking in, or we got to start thinking about paving, painting, roofing, and different items. But after 7 years, we spend a lot of our time renovating and replacing these items. So kudos to our building maintenance department that they're dealing with buildings from anywhere from 25, 30 to 40 years old now, and the 40-year inspections are looking good, which is commendable. I know many associations out there that I talk to ask me about the 40-year rule and what do you do when you have this situation. So it's a good thing that the government has the 40-year inspections, and we had to make a few minor adjustments, a few $100 here and there per building, and it's a big job to keep these buildings up. And we do building inspections on a regular basis, very important. Contracting, requests for bids, bid processing, awards of contracts. I know David Mintz is on here somewhere. David, where are you? Oh, there he is. Hi, David. David was very instrumental when we did this contract about a year ago. There was a lot of loose language in there, maybe on purpose, so that we had a lot of ability to get out of something. But now it's straightforward. We will supervise your jobs, try to get the best contractor. We hope that we can say we provide you the best contractor. But there's a lot of businesses out there, a lot of good businesses. You find one you trust and you want to work with, we'll help you the best possible. But it's important that we go through the request for bids process, get the bids, award the contracts, supervise the contracts. We ensure that the contractor is in compliance with licenses and insured. It blows my mind when we find out, we see a guy working on a building and no one's ever approached us, and he either doesn't have a license or he doesn't have insurance, and we have to go backwards, and we do a lot of this. Even if you don't want to use us, okay? It doesn't hurt. We're not going to bite you. And most of you do. And again, this is the minority go out there and they have to, be a little bit different, and we appreciate that. It's part of being a director. You want to do the best for your building. And but we're not gonna. I hope that you don't feel that we're steering you in the wrong direction. Grounds maintenance, mowing, edging, trimming, chemical treatments when necessary, weeding, irrigation, fertilization, and pest control. It's all in there. It's in the 28 pages. We've added a few things to this. We have an inspection now that, like we just talked about in building maintenance. Hold on, I want to get the report. This report is for the buildings in Lokai, I believe. A 5-building report with pictures and diagrams and comments about what things need to be done, what's fine, etc. It's a long process, as you can see, but you as a director, you know, we're all lay people. And you say, and you just think of, I want a new hedge or I want new plants. But there are a lot of issues that we don't get to until after it's a problem. And here we're trying to nip it in the bud before it becomes a problem. And if you have some dead area and the wind blows, it could create other problems in other areas. As you can see, I'm a layperson when it comes to grounds maintenance, so I'm just trying to give you the big picture here. And, you know, Jason will work with you. He's always consulting, Val, Sal, David. We provide that service. And it's been very successful. Whenever you hear a conversation with the words Val and Sal in it, I know that the result's going to be good. Community contracts negotiated. Wynmoor is a big dog. We got over 5,000 units in here. If you tried to negotiate contracts for a 56 or a 48 unit building, or even an association of about 300 units, you're not going to have the buying power or the clout as you do with 5,000 units. So the first contract we have, obtain and keep in force all insurance as required by 718-111, parentheses 11, for property and liability. Now, if we all went out separately, you can understand that you're not going to get the same rates. Even with the rates we get, and as we're growing, we find out we get a lot of liability claims. A lot of people fall and trip. Now the thing with the pools, people wouldn't even give us a bid. Now I have Tim coming out, Tim Renfro, to look at our property so that he can go out to bid and secure these companies that we did comply with this, and hopefully the market is more competitive and we get better prices. And as I say that, and we're always looking for savings, we have a year of COVID, and we have no idea how COVID-19 is going to affect insurance rates, and what some of the legalities are going to be in with that, and what they insure, and probably what they're not going to insure. So insurance is always a big nut, much different than when we grew up back in the 70s and 80s, and they used to give away insurance policies, HMOs to employees. Now it's very difficult to hire employees if you don't have the right package for them. So insurance has become a big issue all the way around. Legal consultation. The Bogan Law Group, that we have a retainer program for every association for both Florida statute and legal issues, and also for collection issues. I know we use them on a large case. They go beyond their bounds. They're asking questions that are beyond their scope. But this is Mark Bogan. This is the way he operates. I say, Mark, why are you giving out your cell phone number to everybody? You must be a masochist. But this is like how he likes to operate. And it just came up recently when we were trying to look back when we signed the contract for the accounts receivable portion of this insurance. And we were complex because we went back and we couldn't find it. But we did find notes to the file, this is when Jack Dietzman was here, that because it was such a large project to do collections for this community, we didn't want to tie into a contract, so we just did it as we went. And it's proven to be very successful. And it's a deterrent to directors to go and try to collect on a foreclosure if in your mind you don't think it's going to happen. And what happens with these normal law firms is they're going to charge you for a paralegal $150 an hour and a lawyer $350 an hour. And every time you say good morning to them, it's a charge. And you're paying more money out on these individual cases that it was a deterrent to say, you know what, I think we're better off just hoping that they pay and take it to the minimal level. So this was a very aggressive move. And not only have we been successful with foreclosures, but through the innovation of Michael Bogan and safe harboring, we went back to the insurance company, to the banks and said, we have a thing here in our documents that say that you had to provide this information and whatever. And many of the judges side with, depends on the judge, sides with us. And instead of paying the 1%, they got to pay the full amount. And I know I'm seeing many of the directors here that were involved in that, and they were very satisfied that they got their full money back on the back maintenance. Cable television. Right now we're in the middle of a contract. We probably have 4 to 5 years to go. They always entice you, here's some more money, renew the contract. Comcast just came to us, they want to renew for another 10 years. We said, no, there's just too many questions in the industry. When we do our next contract, we're going to be looking, like many of the other big associations, to evaluate, do we want to add internet and phone service to it? I think many want the internet. Also by then, don't forget that a few years ago, AT&T spent millions of dollars putting the high-speed fiber cable in here. So it would be prudent of us to say, you know, you're part of this bidding process. So we want to have a fair bidding process when the cable contract is over with. I know a lot of the Comcast wires and everything right now would have to be changed out because they are old. And, you know, we're looking into that. And as the management here, and TV is very important to all of us, we're doing the best job to give it to your people, the best thing. In my personal community, I live in an HOA, and back when our contract was going to be renewed, this goes back to when the real estate market was really bad. Many people in my association were not paying their maintenance. And as you know, it's a bulk contract. The company gets paid the bulk amount. There's no credit if someone's not paying their maintenance. That was a state regulation. And we could talk about that at another time. But in my association, they said, well, people aren't paying. It's not fair that the other people are. And they made the biggest mistake by getting rid of the bulk contract. A week later, all the people are bringing in their digital dishes. It's a single family community. We can't go back now. And I'm paying about 6 times what I was paying before. We have a really good deal right now for what we get for the $25, $30. And you get more HBOs than I even imagined. Always could do better. When we go for negotiations, we should get a good package. If in 5 years they are still offering cable packages, the whole system may be different by then. So that's cable TV communication contracts. Other contracts in your association specific, elevators, waste disposal, janitorial services, pest control, fire extinguishers, and fire alarms. Again, you have the right to pick those out. We do the best we can to get you the best bids. You sign off at your annual meetings, and you renew those contracts. Next year, the fire extinguishers and fire alarms comes up, not this year. We put those bid packages out, you know, through going to these shows, these trade shows. We have a company that we're using for the council now that we're very happy with. We will give you all that information. You want to change that out, that's up to you. We'll see. I don't know. I think many of you are not happy with your fire extinguisher, fire alarms, as far as them keeping them up on a regular basis. Another thing we provide to you is government liaison, building permits, zoning issues, matters involving the Florida Division of Land Sales, which we don't get many because, again, we're in compliance with everything. Dealing with the police department, the fire department, federal government, county government, and city officials. Wynmoor is, again, a big dog, and we can provide you things and us in general to make our life, to get attention. And I still want to get attention from the state legislature and the federal legislature on some of the issues we discussed before, the 2 major ones. access to records. We are the custodian of the records. Okay? Doesn't seem like much. I know most of you have boxes in your apartments because you think that's what you need to do, but we have the records here. There are statutes of limitations when we have to hold the records. For those of you that didn't know, minutes up to this year only had to be held for 1 year. Now they changed it to 7 years. People always ask me, Bruce, how come this thing with the continual election of 8-year limits, how come we're not doing that? Because our attorney said, well, it starts the day they made the law. You can't go retroactively back because if that was the truth, you have no minutes to prove who was the directors there, which is the official record. So how can I say somebody served 8 years ago when I can't prove I have records of that election? So that was the argument there for those of you that it comes to your attention. And again, you have a union owner, lawyer comes, they want to take litigation against us. We need to have these records. And you can imagine all the different types of records we do have. And in closing, the last thing we want to talk about is emergencies. Now, in Florida, our emergencies are basically weather-related, hurricanes. And for those of you that have been here, I hate talking about the past hurricanes. We do a good job in securing your buildings and getting the vendors in here to get the jobs done as quick as possible. When we had to do all the roofs, we had many roofs to do during the major hurricane back in 2006, known as Wynmoor. And we had the vendor come in here and set up in here. And that worked out really well. It's a very stressful time. We had a lot of directors, even though we provide the service. We had a few that had very high stress issues. And it was very sad. It was a very difficult time. We've had tornadoes in here, different things, and we handle it. We're good with our insurance companies. They're Johnny on the spot. They were out here the day after these major events, or in fact, the tornado the same day. And we got those claims in quickly. And whether or not you consider this an emergency or not, we deal with it. That's the COVID-19. And Jackie and the management committee have taken the reins on this. And I read these articles today, how things are getting worse and so much pressure on them to open things where really under our breath we're saying, are we really too open? But we don't say that in public because people get upset. So these are things that we deal with on a regular basis here. And I know it's a 28-page document. It looks easy when you read it, but it's just a matter of the culture and what Wynmoor is. We are the only association I know that has many associations that we have one big co-op. And again, I don't want to deal with what goes on in these other ones you already know. You know people that live there. So we're pretty happy. We're humble. We're glad to serve you. We are very proud of ourselves. And we thank you. We thank you guys. Elaine, back to you. Elaine, did I put you to sleep?
She shut off her camera. She should be. I just asked her to unmute and turn on the camera.
I have a question for you. You knew I would.
Oh, we hear you, Jack. But let's hear from Elaine real quick.
Okay.
Jack, did you have something you wanted to say, Jack Owen?
They wanted you to go first.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to again thank Bruce for this wonderful presentation that helped us all, I believe. And I think we're going to open it up to questions and answers. So, Jack Goldman, if you want to go first.
Well, Elaine, first, this is really a reinforcement of what Wynmoor is. That's what this piece of paper is, this 28 pages. And I just think we all need to be on the same team, same page. We're going to have adversarial situations. People are not going to be happy all the time. But I think when you take a deep breath and you sit back, because we had this arrangement, we don't have to be adversarial. We can be one big unit.
You
Okay.
said,
Jack, you want to go ahead and ask your
yeah,
first?
I have a question. Bruce, when an association, well, it's actually two questions. When an association had a problem, originally they walked into your office, they sat down with you, and they hashed out the problem. You can't do that now because of the COVID. That's something that I think is missing in Wynmoor. The openness of what it used to be. If you had a problem with your bookkeeping, you saw Heather. You don't get it all done the same way sending a text message. Maintenance, you mentioned that we get reports daily. I've never seen a daily report. I love the way it is when you have something that needs to be done in your building, you send an email. That is great. You have records of what you've asked. You have the new maintenance thing coming around. I'm very happy with the way it's running right this moment. I put everything in, I get a text back, it will be taken care of by such and such a date. I'm very happy. Most associations, I think, are happy with what's going on. The only thing, and I tried to get it changed, why did they set up like the council, and I hope you can answer it, where instead of being one vote per association, it goes on the number of people? That's like the Congress of the United States. The big associations have more power than the little associations. I'm a little association. I would like to see that being discussed and changed. And now I'll leave it for anybody else. And if you could answer.
Jack, keep talking for 5 seconds. Keep talking.
No, I said my spiel. I just would like an answer to some of them.
Did he say, hold on a second? Bruce disappeared for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, Jack, that's your answer right there. You see that?
Yeah.
That's a declaratory statement. Am I on? Yeah. That's a declaratory statement from the state of Florida, because the council is so large that every representative of Wynmoor, of every association, the representative will represent the number of people in their association. That's why we don't have membership votes when it comes to reserves or whatever in the council, because when you vote for whatever you have. And poor Jackie Rayleigh with 16 votes, you're breaking her heart, okay? Because she doesn't have one vote, she has 16 out of 5,260. But this piece of paper here, which allows us to do our business, is the reason why you have the number of votes for the number of people you represent.